And this is the global forecast for the whole of 2019. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about me. Then I'm going to talk about the actual astrology and the dates, and you'll need your diaries for that. And then we'll talk about the effects of what's coming up and what's likely to be happening. So firstly, a big thank you to all those people who have helped me over the year. You know who you are. There's about 10 of you who have helped me big time, and quite a few others who have helped me a little bit. Thank you, because without what you do for me in terms of donations, I wouldn't be able to do stuff like this. Thank you. Now, next year, okay, there's a set of new moons and full moons, and some of them are rather interesting. A couple of them are much more interesting than others. Firstly, there's five eclipses. Five eclipses in 2019. Some of them are not that significant. Some of them really, really are. Let's do them in date order. There's a partial eclipse of the Sun on the 6th of January in the middle of Capricorn, loosely conjunct Saturn and Pluto. That's going to have an impact. That's going to up the ante. It's going to up it's going to ratchet up the pressure in terms of the ongoing political change that's happening in the world, in the way that governments are run. This is followed on the 21st of January by the strongest eclipse of the year, a total eclipse of the moon at 0 degrees of Leo. It's happening about 5 a.m. in the morning UK time on the 21st of January. This is a really significant eclipse, I think. It's going to be both the end of the old and the beginning of the new in a number of ways. And it certainly has long-term implications for when Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto all move into Aquarius over the coming 5 or 6 years. And in times to come, I'm sure we'll look back at the end of January 2019 and say, yes, a lot of things started then. Then we get into July. Now, there's a total eclipse of the Sun on the 2nd of July next year in 2019, day before my birthday. That's going to be interesting, and that's going to shake up a few things as well. That's going to shake up a lot of things in terms of the way that we actually care for each other, I suspect. This is followed by a partial eclipse of the moon in Capricorn on the 16th of July. The full moon in Capricorn will be a partial eclipse. That's taking place at 24 degrees Capricorn. And then there's a relatively minor, but still strong, eclipse of the Sun in Capricorn again on the 26th of December. There's 4 eclipses. 3 eclipses in Capricorn this year. 1 in Cancer, 1 in Leo. Some of the full moons are really significant, particularly as we get into the end of the year. I am specifically looking at the full moon on the 28th of October. This will be at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and it will be precisely 1/5 of 1 degree opposite Uranus in the sky. 1 month after that, I'm sorry, that's a new moon, not a full moon. The new moon on the 28th of October is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, exactly opposite Uranus. Precisely 1 month after that, the new moon on the 26th of November at 4 degrees of Sagittarius is the same day, or within 24 hours, of Mars in the sky being opposite Uranus. So the Mars-Uranus opposition is on the new moon. Again, at 4 degrees of Taurus stroke Scorpio. So it seems to me that Uranus moving into Taurus is going to be particularly accented during late October to late November next year by the new moons. Really interesting time, a time to watch. Pluto continues its journey through Capricorn. It is now 2/3 of the way through Capricorn. Who'd have thought we'd have got here? Pluto passing through Capricorn is transforming the way we revolutionise or not our governments, the way we structure the organisations that rule our lives, whether they're corporate, political or local. It seems that the whole notion of government, governing, is going through fundamental transformation, and it seems as if it's being forced into it, kicking and screaming. This is amplified by the fact that we also have Saturn in Capricorn in its own sign all year. And of course, next year in 2020, we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That's a subject for a number of videos over the coming year. It's also worthy of note that Jupiter will move into Capricorn in December 2019 in readiness for the triple conjunction of 2020. Neptune continues its journey through Pisces, it's halfway through, and Uranus is moving into Taurus. And this is going to bring fundamental changes over the next 2 or 3 years in the way we attach ourselves to things like values, resources, assets, possessions, property, and particularly money. The way that money is run and managed is coming up for fundamental change. The last time that Uranus was in this same position as it is now was around 1935, just after the Great Depression, when the money markets were all being changed and rewritten. Interesting times. But it is the aspects of 2019 that are the most significant. The two major aspects in 2019 are both going towards Neptune. There's going to be an 8-month-long square from Jupiter in the sky in Sagittarius to Neptune, running from mid-January through to mid-September. At the same time, there's also going to be a 9-month sextile from Saturn in Capricorn to Neptune, running from late January through to mid-November. Neptune in Pisces, it's a 14-year transit. Neptune deals with empathy and compassion, sensitivity, intuition, magic, art, music, film, photography, gullibility, escapism, avoidance, addiction, neuroses. Neptune rules Pisces. We are seeing a flood of empathy and compassion for those less fortunate than ourselves. We're seeing floods of refugees. We're seeing environmental disasters galore. They've always been happening, but because we've got wonderful technology now, they're being reported more, so we're more conscious of them. We're seeing a flood of plastic. I associate all of these phenomena, refugees, environmental concerns, the flood of plastic, with Neptune in Pisces. Jupiter, in its own sign of Sagittarius until early December, is actually quite a positive place for many people, but it's also going to be over-exaggerating and over-amplifying everything it touches. And with Jupiter squaring Neptune, particularly around mid-January, we're going to see certain situations involving refugees, the environment, maybe plastics, really amplifying, exaggerating and getting way out of proportion. At the same time, or very close to it, Saturn is going to be sextiling Neptune. Saturn's in Capricorn, also its own sign. So you've got Jupiter in its own sign, Saturn in its own sign, and Neptune in their own sign. Saturn in Capricorn is going to be looking at Neptune's concerns and going, wait a minute, let's deal with this in a pragmatic, down-to-earth, grounded, realistic, practical way. Whereas Jupiter's going to be ramping it up and saying, oh, it's a disaster and it's all big corporates' fault, it's all the politicians' fault, it's all the Muslims' fault, it's all the Christians' fault, it's everyone else's fault. Xenophobia is rampant. At the moment, everyone's demonising Islam. 30 years ago in this country, everyone was demonising the Catholics. 100 years ago, everyone was demonising the black people. What is it? In every country of the world. Democratic Republic of Congo today. India, the caste system. Australia, the misogyny and the racism. South Africa, still not sorted out its racial stuff. America, persecuting people because of their religion or their skin colour. Britain, the architect of so much of this. There's so much hatred in the world towards people who are not the same religion or colour as us. Jupiter square Neptune is going to amplify some of this. At the same time, Saturn sextile Neptune is going to provide a balance. And the thing is, the Saturn sextile Neptune will last longer than the Jupiter square Neptune. So as Jupiter finishes its square to Neptune around mid-September 2019, Saturn is really beginning to bite, and I do suggest that the more we get into the second half of the year, the Saturn sextile Neptune may actually start providing sensible solutions to many of the problems that Jupiter's going to amplify in the first half of the year. Now, there are a few trigger points before we actually look at some of the specific issues. Mars will conjunct Uranus on the 13th and 14th of February at the very end of Aries, 29 and a half Aries. Mars will oppose Saturn and Pluto in the middle 10 days of June. This is likely to be a critical time for the world, with lots of anger and explosive situations. Mars will oppose Neptune at the time of the full moon over the 13th and 14th of September. That's going to be interesting, especially in terms of environmental concerns. And then Mars will oppose Uranus, as I've already mentioned, on the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th of November, on the new moon, immediately after the new moon at the end of October, which is exactly opposite Uranus. So it's not going to be a quiet year. Now, it's pretty clear to me that the horoscopes of both Australia and Britain are being strongly attacked, wrong word, stimulated in a challenging way by the effects of 2019. I expect both of these countries to go through major political trauma, especially in Britain, where Brexit is looking, at the time of recording this on the 30th of December, as if a second referendum will happen, but that will involve multiple resignations from the highest level down. It will also destroy confidence in the electoral system in Britain. And regardless of whether Britain leaves Europe or not, the damage is already done. This is going to lead to a new change in the way politics is managed, and Britain is ahead of the curve here. The old party political system doesn't work. And we're going to see a change. And it's not going to be based around referenda, because there's no appetite for that. Hopefully, proportional representation will come in, and we will not elect people according to their party, but we will elect people to do what the proportional representation of their electorate want them to do. That would be the ideal situation. Or the best of a bad bunch, anyway. Better than what we've got. In Britain, the political parties are falling over, eating themselves and engorging themselves. Nobody trusts them anymore. In Australia, the misogyny and the racism, particularly the misogyny, it beggars belief. In India, the caste system and the dislike of people according to religion is becoming awful. Maybe we're just getting more of it on the media. America, well, I'm certainly going to be doing videos in the next month on Brexit and Trump and things like this. It's going to get worse before it gets better in America, and particularly around the start of March 2019, I expect Donald Trump to go through some type of catharsis. I think that's a good word. Things will change from then on, and I don't know yet in which way. Come back to that one another time. All of this in 2019 is a natural progression from stuff that's been building since the great big grand crosses of 2010 and 2012, which in themselves are a kind of a flag, if you like, for the events that precursed this from 1999 onwards. And from 1999, there's been an accelerating growth of astrological phenomena and symbolism, all ratcheting up and pointing towards 2020 and the grand conjunction. And the new type of politics and the new type of financial organisations that's going to happen, whether we like it or not. It's necessary. It will have to happen. Because without it, we're engorging ourselves that humanity doesn't stand that much chance. Now, I'm not going to get on my environmental soapbox here, but I want the last 20 years of my life to be relatively environmentally pleasant. And I think the decisions that we collectively make, and it is down to us, it's not down to our elected so-called representatives, it's down to us. The decisions that we make over the coming 2 years are going to affect not only the rest of our lives, but our children's and our grandchildren's lives. Astrologically, 2020 is the nexus point of the last 25 years, plus, in fact, it's been ratcheting up since the 60s. And it does seem that we're getting ready to be pushed in an entirely new direction. So, watch this space. It's going to be an interesting year. It is going to get worse before it gets better, but there are clear signs that as we get into the last 4 months of this year, things are going to start improving. Fingers crossed, I'm going to be on the astrological pulse, I hope, over most of this year. And I hope that many of you will be coming along on the road with me, metaphorically speaking. And yeah, my tag, negativity can't exist where there's humour. Find the humour, even through the tears, because when you laugh, it stops you going mad. Seriously. All right, well, take care. See you in a few days, I expect. Bye.